guys, it's Kendra again with WTMAstrology. Welcome back to my channel. Today I'm going to be talking about 5 reasons that Cancer is the worst sign. Now this is my ascendant sign and my Mars sign, also my South Node. I have a whole little cluster on my ascendant in Cancer. So just as with my Aries video, everything that I'm about to say actually relates directly to me, so please don't get your panties in a twist about this. This is all in good fun. I know that Cancer can get a little sensitive sometimes. So without further ado, I'm going to give you 5 reasons that Cancer is the worst. Number 1 reason that Cancer is the worst sign. They're selfishly emotional. Cancer can be really selfish emotionally. So they think of themselves as being really caring and loving and nurturing, but really most of their emotional reactions are for themselves. It's like you offended them, you upset them, whatever. So someone said, oh my god, because they think the whole world is out to get them, and any tiny thing you say to them is an insult. Like, get over it. So this is actually a good example of how Cancer can be emotionally selfish and how it differs from fire sign selfishness, which is more overt. Cancer will interpret any small remark as being against them. It'll be interpreted as a personal attack. You could be making a general statement, but Cancer will take what you said and be like, that was about me. And then they'll start asking you what do you mean by that? And there's really no right answer to that question because they've already decided that it was about them. But then you're stuck literally explaining what this totally innocuous remark meant to them, so maybe they won't be offended. And you have to sit there and do that exhaustively until Cancer is satisfied or until you are actually convinced that you did mean something bad by it. It's like total gaslighting. Someone else said how obsessed with toxic relationships they are and how the only way they can communicate their feelings is through personal attacks and tantrums. Cancer is a sign of the crab because they're very self-protective, which also translates to defensive at times. Generally speaking, because Cancer interprets so many things as a personal attack, by the time you can even address it, or by the time they even address it, there's no sense of rationality behind what they're saying. They've already assumed you meant it offensively and they're a mess about it, and there's just no logic happening. They act like they're being attacked when they very much haven't been, and then they start attacking you because you deserve it, because you attacked them, obviously. So number 2 reason Cancer is the worst sign. They're manipulative. So this is a long one. They can be stuck in their martyrdom role, unable to see that they are selfish and needy babies like everyone else. It's like they fixate on how they are the caregiver and refuse to acknowledge that there is a payoff to playing that role. When someone is dependent on you, they can't leave. Cancers are caring people for sure, but they need to learn to back off and that their care isn't always wanted or needed, and that it can be selfish of them to push their care onto people. They don't know what's best for people all the time, and people are allowed to say no to their love, which is often actually emotional manipulation disguised with a tea cozy. So here is where I tell you a very personal story about my life and an experience that I had with a Cancer, and this is probably the most personal I've ever gotten in a YouTube video. So my ex-mother-in-law was a Cancer. She said she loved me so much. She said I was the world to her and she loved me like her own. She used to go on about how great it was to have a daughter because she had all boys, and we were actually really close. But her son was actually really abusive to me from day one in a variety of different ways, and I just sucked it up because I was young and dumb, and I guess I just didn't even realize it was what it was. But after I started realizing, after I had my daughter, because having kids will put things into perspective for you real quick. After I realized what was going on, I decided I wanted to leave him, and I told him, and then things started escalating. So that's when the ugly side of Cancer came out with his mother. So I really loved her and I wanted to continue to have a relationship with her even if things didn't work out with her son. So I was really blind to the kind of stuff that she was doing for a long time. But she manipulated that situation so hard. She manipulated me to stay with him. She told him I was just hormonal and crazy. She enabled him and told him that he was totally fine in the situation, and even told him that I was actually the abusive one. She eventually gave him a ton of money to hire a lawyer to basically make it illegal for me to leave the state we were in with our daughter. And no, I'm not kidding. Unfortunately, this is all real. Then she tried to act like she didn't do that. When I left him, I went to stay with her for a couple weeks because I was like, I just want to give her the opportunity to spend a little more time with her granddaughter and me before we make the big move, because I was fully planning to leave. But I was super naive in that situation, so I went to stay with her thinking like she would never do anything bad to me because she said she loved me so much, you know? And I'd been there for like one night and I was served with papers the next day. Basically, it was a restraining order keeping me in that state, so I couldn't leave and go back to my family. Anyway, I did eventually get out. You can't trap an Aries Sun Sag Moon for too long and expect that to work. But she really did try her best to trap me with her awful sun, and for the whole next year after I left, she kept saying things like, no, you can come back home whenever you want, and basically acting like we hadn't had this huge problem. She acted like I was her prodigal daughter. Of course, this is not like typical Cancer behavior. This is an extreme example. I tend to have a lot of extreme examples in my life. I think it's because I have Venus opposite Pluto, so some of my interpersonal interactions can get a little crazy. But anyway, this is an extreme example that I have experienced of Cancer manipulation. Someone else said, also, like any cardinal sign, they take a leadership role and try to get other people to follow. Like my boyfriend's dad is a Cancer and will be like, I made these plans, are you coming? Without letting people know prior, and then he'll say, your brother is coming, will you come if your brother is coming? And then say the same thing to my boyfriend's brother to try and manipulate the situation. So that actually does sound very much like Cancerian manipulation to me, like springing things on people and manipulating both sides so people will agree to things they wouldn't have otherwise. Okay, so I will admit that this is something that I have done more so when I was younger. So, you know, I've become more self-aware, I've worked on myself a little bit. But when I was younger, I would do things like that. Like I would wait to make a request until the circumstances were such that you couldn't say no to me without a guilt trip. The Cancer approach is very much like cornering people and backing them into a corner to get the response that you want or get what you want out of that situation. That's why Cancer Mars, I've heard, actually make very good fighters. So number 3 reason that Cancer is the worst sign. They're passive aggressive. Someone said, too irrational. Let's be real, all signs are sensitive in some way, but Cancer takes it to a whole new level. Moody, cold, and passive aggressive. I remember dealing with Cancers. I'll say what I mean and console them only to receive a cold shoulder. They're very cold, tricky users, masters of manipulation. That was pretty harsh. So taking it back to my ex-mother-in-law once again. We have Cancer Mars in the same degree. She's actually Cancer Sun and Cancer Mars. We have Cancer Mars in the exact same degree, which I guess may be why we got along so well at first. But basically, after it came out in the open that she had basically given her son money to legally trap me, things weren't so good between us, understandably. But at this point, like I was in her house, right? So I was staying in her house because I didn't want to go back to him where we lived. So I was staying in her house and it was just like, it was like ticking time bomb energy constantly. Like we would skulk around the house, not speaking to each other. If she came into the room, I would leave. There wasn't much I could say to her because I was living in her house, so I couldn't even like say what was really on my mind about the situation. The tension was so thick that you could cut it with a knife. I remember one day I was like in the kitchen and she was like over in the dining room doing a puzzle and humming to herself. I remember just thinking, you are one crazy. So shortly after that, there was a huge blow up. Basically, I went upstairs because she was coming downstairs to leave the house. So basically my ex called up the stairs. He's like, Kendra, come downstairs. I'm like, no, I'll wait, like, cause I was waiting for her to leave. Finally, he kept calling me, and so I was like, what does he want? So I went downstairs and she was standing there like, do you have a problem with me? Obviously I have a problem with you. I just said yeah, but I don't really want to talk about it. And they both kept pressing it until there was a huge Cancer Mars epic blow up, and that's the day I finally left. Yay me! Someone else said, Probably the most passive-aggressive sign. They can say and do the most cutting, hurtful things, and then when you finally snap back, you're being so mean. It's like when your mom is being horrible and telling you all the ways you're wrong and don't know how to live correctly, and you come back with, "You've always been a housewife taken care of by dad and never had to pay one bill yourself, while I'm out here in the world paying rent and taking care of it all alone." And she starts crying and the world looks at you like, "You made your mother cry." This is one thing that's awful about Cancers. They can always be the victim. They'll say the worst, most horrible things to you, the most cutting, mean things. But if you so much as dare explain their hypocrisy to them, they'll turn it around and play the victim and make you look like you're the bad guy coming after this sweet innocent little Cancer. So reason number 4 that Cancer is the worst. They're emotionally closed off, then extremely volatile. Someone said, from a Capricorn, most of the Cancerians I've met and known in life never seem to have a good handle on their emotions. In other words, the healthy coping and communication skills are severely lacking with them. In my opinion, Cancer is probably the least evolved sign in the zodiac. This sign may be home to many powerful psychics and spiritual facilitators, yet its natives can't even tell where their emotional boundaries are. They project their insecurities and fears and blame you for not understanding how they feel when they should have verbally expressed as much in the first place. Nurturers they are, kind and caring, yes, but a connection with this sign can often get toxic and emotionally draining pretty quickly. So again, Cancer is symbolized by the self-protective crab. They have a tendency to assume the worst of your intentions and react in kind. And as long as I've known Cancers, and I've known many Cancers, I have a lot of Cancers in my family, they're not good at expressing their emotions. As emotional as they are, as much of a reputation as they have for being these highly emotional people, they don't seem to be very emotionally intelligent, at least not to where they could express their feelings to you in a productive way. They go from 0 to 500 so fast because they don't bother to take time to express their feelings in a calm and rational way. They go right for the throat. This goes back to the emotional selfishness. Cancers feel things really hard and fast, and to them what they're feeling is truth. And it's extremely hard for them to rationalize their feelings outside of that, let alone explain their feelings rationally. So sometimes they won't explain their feelings at all. They'll just crawl back up into their crab shell and wait for the inevitable explosion. Someone said, Cancer men are a whole other breed. When they feel too vulnerable, they'll just flip out internally and ghost someone they were obsessed with 5 seconds ago. So I've talked to a few Cancer guys, and this is definitely something they do. As soon as they feel vulnerable or they think they might like you too much or whatever, they ghost you. And it's super weird. Because you always hear that Cancers are super clingy, blah blah blah, but this is just another way that they express, and I think it has to do with conditioning and masculinity in our society. You're not allowed to be emotional, you're not allowed to be needy, so instead they just totally ghost. And it's you can tell the difference between ghosting because someone's not interested and someone ghosting because they're really freaking sensitive. You don't think of Cancer as a sign that's big on ghosting, but they'll totally do it if they feel even the slightest hint of rejection from you. Reason number 5 that Cancer is the worst. They're moody. Someone said, actually a Cancer said, I guess if I had to hate on my own sign, it would be my mood swings. I could have a mental breakdown crying in the morning, and by the evening I'm like, what even happened? It wasn't that big of a deal. Who even was that woman this morning? It felt like ages ago, not this morning. Rinse and repeat every week or so. Cancer women are fine, but Cancer men I can't deal with. So as someone with a lot of Cancer in their chart, I heavily identify with this statement. It's like when I'm in a mood, it's not going anywhere. I'm as much a victim to that mood as anybody else. And then when I come out of it and I look back at how I was feeling and how I was acting, I'm like, why was I even so upset? It's legit totally foreign to me how I was acting. It's just that Cancerian moodiness, and it's totally intolerable to the people in Cancer's life. Someone said, dated one, mood swings, mommy and daddy issues, ashamed of everything regular humans accept as normal, like being sick or average or in love. Yes, the mood swings are very real, and I agree that I have noticed Cancers are very easily embarrassed about things that should be like normalized. They think things are a big deal that really don't need to be. Like, accept yourself, Cancer, you're a human being. So that's the end of the 5 reasons that Cancer is the worst. Now, this didn't make the list because I don't really see it as something that is super Cancerian. It's not something that I've noticed a lot in Cancers. But it got mentioned enough that I guess some people do have this experience. Apparently Cancers are needy. And you know, I can see how Cancerian energy can be needy, and I have met like maybe 1 or 2 needy Cancers. Like, oh yeah, I was talking to somebody, they called me in the middle of the night drunk asking why I never talked to them. So that was one needy Cancer experience that I had. But usually I tend to find that Cancerians are really closed off emotionally. They feel things very intensely on an internal level, but they're not very expressive outwardly, so they're unlikely to be super needy. Remember, Cancer is the crab, the hard shell with a soft interior. Anyway, that's the end of my 5 reasons Cancer is the worst video. Thank you so much for watching. If you enjoyed this, please like and subscribe. Leave a comment below if you have anything you want to add to one of the videos, Leo through Pisces, because I'm going to be roasting all the zodiac signs because you know they're all terrible. Thank you again so much for watching, and have a great day.